what represents success for Liverpool from here? That's the big question. I suppose Champions League football is always the minimum requirement. If Liverpool were to get into the top 5 this season, I think you'd have to say, given what's happened in the last few months, how bad it has been at times, the positions that they've been in. We've had, conversations about, Arne Slot's position and his future and how much pressure he's been under. If Liverpool were to come 5th, is that enough to say, let's just get to the summer, come 5th, move on and forget this all happened? Or do Liverpool need maybe a bit of silverware as well to turn this around fully?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think 5th and silverware, we're definitely not talking about concerns. I think 6th in the Champions League, which obviously then would guarantee you a spot in the Champions League next season, probably wouldn't be an issue, maybe. I mean, you'd look at Ange Postecoglou and Spurs and what happened there, albeit look, it's a much more extreme scenario last season. But, as a sign perhaps that league form ultimately is so seen as so vital and so important. I don't know. I think you and I will probably both agree that 6th place and no silverware isn't going to end particularly well for Slot. I think that you need to be ticking at least one of those boxes. I think where you start getting into the realms and having questions about is, 6th place in the FA Cup, for instance. I don't know whether that would be seen as a success. Is 5th place, where you maybe limp over the line, don't end the season particularly convincingly, is that enough as well to silence the doubters? Again, I'm not too sure. So I would probably say 5th would be okay, personally, and then missing out and winning the Champions League would also be seen as okay, probably in my eyes. But what do you think?
Yeah, I broadly would agree with that. I think it depends a lot more on performances for me than results. And by that, I mean, let's say Liverpool win 6 out of the last 7 league games, but they miss out on the Champions League by a point. But you can kind of see Kirkes is playing really well, Wirtz is playing really well. Maybe by that point, Alexander Isak has come back. You can kind of see what the plan is, and there's a little bit of momentum to go into the summer. In that case, I think it becomes even more difficult if they don't get into the Champions League, but you can kind of see the direction they're heading in, because there's that conflict between it's looking a little bit better and, ultimately the results haven't quite been good enough. But I think if they were to miss out on the Champions League and, lose, let's say, a third of the games between now and the end of the season, end it a little bit limply, it almost, you can't dictate the future of a manager based on the vibes or how it kind of feels or that kind of thing. But I do think that will be important. If Liverpool finish this season strongly, regardless of whether that means silverware or not, I think the argument is then there that, okay, this was one season where it didn't really work, but we feel like we're on the right track. We can do a couple of bits in the summer and then go again. And the start of next season is a fresh start. For me, it will hinge on that, really. What does it feel like? We know what it's felt like when it's been a low period for Liverpool this season, and it felt a long way from being able to be turned around. I think if the last month or so of this season was to be better in terms of sort of the performances, the feeling, the sort of general direction that the team is heading in, maybe then you can say, okay, one season of the Europa League, but we're heading back in the right direction. Maybe that makes it viable, but I don't know whether that's likely or not.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I mean, I kind of hinted at that myself with the kind of the limping over the line analogy. There needs to be, it's a good way of putting it, they need to finish this season with the belief that they are moving back forward, that they have put together a young squad that can challenge, I think probably for the title next season, realistically, for the amount of money that's been spent, for where Liverpool were this time 12 months ago, for the squad that they put together and the talent they have in their group. But I think long term, Liverpool need to be challenging for the title and for silverware at the top end, if not every year, the vast majority of years. And I think that's the question that will probably determine Slot's future in the summer when FSG look at it and think, is Slot the man to lead us to that? So yeah, that's the big question. But look, I we kind of touched on it. I do think that there's no denying that the team have improved, certainly since around November time. I think there's even in the last couple of weeks examples of where it looks like the team are getting better in terms of, I thought the first half against Sunderland was a real example, I think, of how Slot wants this team to play, in that they were actually quite defensively sturdy, created a lot of chances, dominated possession. And I think for the first time I thought that's what he's been building towards all season. I mean, obviously the Brighton game was very good as well, but as we've seen so many times this season, it can all be undone by one bad result. He has a terrible record against Forest, Slot, obviously, which is the next game. So let's see. I'm yet to be convinced that this is a really good, proper, elite team yet, because I think, well, I certainly have. I think you maybe are the same, but I've been burned by this a couple of times before already this season.
As we sit here right now, can you see Liverpool winning the FA Cup or the Champions League? Because a lot of people have kind of gone, well, win the Champions League and that'll save the season. But I mean, it's easier said than done.
To win the Champions League?
Can you see, as Liverpool are right now, can you see them winning the FA Cup or the Champions League? I think they would have to improve substantially to win the Champions League. The effort, I mean, obviously both scenarios depend on the draw and things like that. You can't predict those kind of things, but I think it's very hard right now to make the argument that Liverpool can win the Champions League.
I don't know. I just think that if you look at the performances of the Champions League this season, they've been really good. They've been the best performances of the campaign, and if they can maintain those levels, maybe step them up a little bit, gradually the team is improving and developing, then maybe. I think they could. Yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, I think they could. Do you?
Not right now, no. I mean, I'm almost the reverse of you in that I think they can definitely get into the top 4, top 5 places. I think that you do that.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't have the confidence in them over 2 legs. I mean, obviously they've had one-off results this season against Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, teams like that. But I don't know. Over 2 legs, I think is a little bit different. And I'd admit, look, it's a competition. Liverpool have done well from nowhere in the past, but I don't know. I just find it interesting that people have kind of gone, well, the league's gone, maybe we can win the Champions League, and I just don't think I don't think it's necessarily that detached from each other. If you're not playing well in the league, can you win the Champions League? I don't know. I think it's fairly unlikely, but that's only unlikely, I think, if they stay at the same level they are now. If the improvement continues and they can keep key players fit, because that's another big element of this is the state of the squad and the lack of depth in a couple of different areas. If they carry on the way they're heading, maybe they can play themselves into contention. But literally right now, as we sit here, I'd struggle to make the argument. I think that they would beat PSG, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Man City. I think if they were to come up against any of those teams over 2 legs, I think they'd be very much second favourites.
I don't disagree with any of that. I suppose the answer to the last question is is based around, I think they'd have to improve from where they are now, but they are improving. They are slowly improving, and that has been the case for a while. And as I say, I think they're suited to these Champions League games for whatever reason, whether it's the way the opposition sets up, whether it's the night. They actually have a much better record at night time, don't they, than in the day as well, bizarrely, Liverpool. I don't know. So I listen, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I think that they could do it. And look, many times we've seen over the years that the sides that don't have an amazing domestic season, I'm thinking Liverpool 2005, Chelsea 2012 as 2 examples. You can go on and summon these big performances and these nights in the Champions League and go on to win it. So listen, I think it's possible. Right now, do you think it will happen? No, probably not. But I do think it's possible.
You've been listening to the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.